There is a profound wisdom in knowing when to hold on and when to let go. We often believe that perseverance is a virtue, that love means enduring even when it hurts. But what if holding on is not faith but fear? What if the struggle is not a test but a sign? God does not call you to suffer endlessly in the name of love. He does not plant seeds in barren soil or ask you to build a home where the foundation. There is a profound wisdom in knowing when to hold on and when to let go. We often believe that perseverance is a virtue, that love means enduring even when it hurts. But what if holding on is not faith but fear? What if the struggle is not a test but a sign? God does not call you to suffer endlessly in the name of love. He does not plant seeds in barren soil or ask you to build a home where the foundation is already crumbling. Sometimes what feels like loss is actually liberation, and what seems like failure is divine redirection. We cling to people because we fear emptiness. But emptiness is not something to be feared. It is space, potential, the womb of creation. Yet we resist, convincing ourselves that love means attachment, when in truth, love is freedom. And when a relationship becomes a source of pain rather than peace, it may be time to ask if God is guiding you away, not because you have failed, but because He has something greater in store. If you are constantly forcing something to work, if every conversation is heavy, if trust has turned into doubt and joy into obligation, then you must pause and ask, is this love or is this resistance to change? Love is meant to uplift, to expand, to bring lightness to the soul. But when you feel trapped, as if your spirit is withering in someone's presence, it is not love. It is attachment disguised as devotion. It's a leaf. It's a devotion disguised as devotion. God speaks not through thunderous commands, but through the quiet discomfort in your heart, through the way your soul hesitates before stepping forward. And yet, the greatest challenge is not in seeing the signs, but in accepting them. We bargain with God, asking for one more chance, one more sign, as if His answer has not already been made clear. We mistake difficulty for destiny, thinking that if we just try harder, love will become easy again. But love should not be a war zone. If you are always at battle, fighting for affection, pleading for understanding, waiting for someone to change, then you must ask yourself, is this love bringing me closer to God, or further away from the peace He has promised me? Some will say that true love is about endurance. But endurance is not the same as wisdom. To hold on to something that is breaking you is not love, it is fear. Is this your aim? And fear is not of God. If every effort to make things right is met with more resistance, more disappointment, more heartache, then perhaps it is not meant to be fixed. Perhaps it is meant to be released. The river does not argue with the rock in its path. It flows around it, knowing that the obstacle is not an enemy but a guide. And so, when God is telling you to give up on someone, it is not punishment, it is not cruelty, it is grace. It is the gentle pulling away of something that no longer serves your journey. It is an invitation to step into the unknown, to trust that the space left behind will be filled with something greater. Do not be afraid to let go, for in letting go you are not losing. You are making room for the love that was meant for you all along. If a relationship brings repeated heartbreak, it may not be a test of endurance, but a lesson in letting go. There is a belief that love must always be fought for, that persistence in relationships is a virtue, but not all battles are meant to be won. Sometimes the endless cycle of pain is not a sign that you need to try harder, but a signal that you are holding on to something that was never meant to stay. We tell ourselves that if we endure a little longer, if we just have more patience, things will change. But love is not meant to be a constant struggle. Love is meant to heal, to nourish, to bring peace, not endless turmoil. There is something deeply human about returning to what wounds us. We mistake familiarity for fate, We grow accustomed to pain and call it devotion. But when God repeatedly shows you that a person's presence in your life is leading to suffering rather than growth, you must ask yourself whether you are ignoring the signs out of fear of the unknown. How many times has your heart been broken in the same way? How many times have you convinced yourself that this time will be different, only to find yourself standing in the same place, carrying the same sorrow? A lesson unlearned will keep repeating itself until you finally wake up and choose differently. Pain can be a teacher, but only if you listen. God does not lead you in circles. Your unwillingness to let go does. Every time you forgive someone who does not change, every time you excuse behavior that dishonors your spirit, you are not proving your strength. You are delaying your healing. Love does not mean sacrificing your well-being. Love does not mean tolerating what breaks you just because you are afraid to start over. God will never require you to destroy yourself for the sake of keeping someone else in your life. And if you find yourself drained, weary, and questioning your worth in a relationship, it is not a relationship, it is bondage. The truth is, love should not feel like walking on glass, waiting for the next cut, hoping that maybe this time you won't bleed. If someone's presence in your life brings more tears than joy, more anxiety than peace, then God is not testing you. He is showing you what you need to release. A healthy relationship does not leave you feeling uncertain, like you are constantly trying to prove your worth, like you are the only one holding things together. Real love does not leave you in pieces. And if someone continues to break you, then they are not your destiny, no matter how much your heart argues otherwise. God speaks in the patterns of your life. If you keep finding yourself in the same painful situation with the same person, ask yourself why. Ask yourself if you are staying because of love or because of fear. Ask yourself if you are holding on because of hope or because you are afraid of the emptiness that follows letting go. But emptiness is not the enemy. Emptiness is space for something better. Emptiness is where healing begins. At some point, you must stop praying for things to change and start listening to the answer that has already been given. If God has closed a door, stop trying to force it open. If you continue to find yourself in the same cycle of heartbreak, stop calling it love. True love will not make you beg for it. True love will not ask you to prove yourself, to shrink yourself, to accept less than you deserve. And if you are caught in a loop of suffering, it is not because you need to be stronger, it is because you need to let go. If a relationship keeps you from growing spiritually, emotionally, or mentally, it is a sign that God's purpose for you lies elsewhere. The divine does not plant seeds in barren soil. Yet how often do we remain in places where our souls feel stifled, where our spirits are confined, where we are no longer expanding but merely surviving? We convince ourselves that loyalty means staying, that love requires sacrifice, but what if staying is the very thing blocking us from becoming who God intended us to be? Growth is a fundamental part of life. Everything that is alive is either expanding or withering, moving forward or falling behind. And relationships, too, should be spaces of expansion, of transformation, of becoming more, not less, of yourself. And you're proof. But when you are with someone who dims your light, who discourages your dreams, who keeps you tethered to old versions of yourself that no longer serve you, then you must recognize that this is not love, it is limitation. God's love is about movement, about calling you higher, about refining you into the best version of yourself. And when someone holds you back, when they make you feel as though you must shrink to be accepted, then that relationship is not aligned with God's plan. We often think that love means endurance, that staying through every storm is proof of our devotion, but endurance is only valuable when it leads to something greater. If a relationship is keeping you stagnant, if it is forcing you into a state of emotional or spiritual paralysis, then God is not asking you to endure it. He is asking you to leave it behind. Some people are only meant to be part of a chapter in your story, not the whole book. And if you insist on keeping them past their time, you may find yourself trapped in a cycle of spiritual drought, unable to move forward, unable to receive the blessings that await you beyond them. Growth often requires discomfort. It requires stepping into the unknown, into the space where transformation happens. But staying in a place where your spirit is suffocating is not faith. It is fear masquerading as faith. If you find yourself constantly explaining your vision to someone who refuses to see it, constantly defending your dreams to someone who belittles them, constantly justifying your growth to someone who prefers you as you were, then you are not in a relationship that honors your path. You are in a prison built out of someone else's limitations, and God does not want you to live confined by another person's inability to see your potential. When God wants to move you to a new level, He will often make your old level unbearable. The discomfort, the tension, the frustration. It is not meant to punish you. It is meant to wake you up. It is meant to show you that you are outgrowing the place you once felt comfortable in. You may try to ignore it, try to convince yourself that things will get better, that if you just have more patience, more faith, more effort, then the relationship will become what you hoped for. But deep down, you know the truth. You know that you are not growing here. You know that your spirit is restless, that your dreams feel smaller, that your purpose feels distant. And when you feel that, you must trust that God is calling you forward, not because you have failed, but because your journey is meant to continue beyond this person. Do not be afraid to leave behind what no longer nurtures your soul. Do not be afraid to walk away from relationships that make you feel stagnant. God's plan for you is one of growth, of transformation, of movement. And if someone is keeping you from that, then they are not part of His plan for your future. Let them go. Trust that what is waiting for you beyond them is far greater than anything you are leaving behind. But deep down you know the truth. You know that you are not growing here. You know that your spirit is restless, that your dreams feel smaller, that your purpose feels distant. And when you feel that, you must trust that God is calling you forward, not because you have failed, but because your journey is meant to continue beyond this person. Do not be afraid to leave behind what no longer nurtures your soul. Do not be afraid to walk away from relationships that make you feel stagnant. God's plan for you is one of growth, of transformation, of movement. And if someone is keeping you from that, then they are not part of His plan for your future. Let them go. Trust that what is waiting for you beyond them is far greater than anything you are leaving behind. God's direction often comes in the form of peace. If your soul is restless, anxious, or constantly in turmoil over someone, it may be God whispering that your spirit is being confined. We often wait for loud, dramatic signs, expecting a clear voice from the heavens telling us when to walk away. But God's voice is often much softer. It speaks in the quiet unease, in the heaviness in your chest, in the feeling that no matter what you do, something is just not right. Yet we resist. We tell ourselves that love is supposed to be difficult, that relationships require work, that the discomfort we feel is just part of the process. And while love does require effort, it should not require suffering. Peace is God's confirmation. When you are in alignment with His will, even in difficult seasons, there is an underlying sense of calm. But when something or someone is no longer meant for you, there is a restlessness that will not go away. No matter how much you pray, how much you try, how much you hope, that restlessness is not an attack from the enemy. It is divine redirection. It is God's way of telling you that your spirit was not meant to live in a constant state of tension. You must learn to trust the feeling of peace just as much as you trust the feeling of discomfort. You must learn to trust the feeling of discomfort. If you have to convince yourself every day that a relationship is worth it, if you wake up more often with anxiety than with joy, if your mind is consumed with doubts rather than security, then you must ask yourself, is this truly love, or am I simply afraid of losing what is familiar? We cling to what is known, even when it hurts us, because we fear what lies on the other side of letting go. But God's plans for you do not include constant distress. Love is not meant to be a battlefield where you are always fighting for clarity, for security, for validation. Think about the moments when you have been closest to God, the times when you have felt His presence so deeply that all worries seem to fade. That feeling, pure, unwavering peace, is what love should bring. Not a perfect absence of hardship, not a life without any struggles, but a deep, unshakable sense that you are safe, that you are valued, that you are where you are meant to be. When a relationship disrupts that peace over and over again, it is not a test, it is an answer. And the answer is that you are forcing something that was never meant to fit. But the hardest thing to accept is that sometimes love is not enough. You can love someone with all your heart and still not be meant to walk the same path. You can pour every ounce of yourself into a relationship and still feel empty. You can want it to work so badly that you ignore every sign telling you it is time to go. Yet no amount of love will bring peace where there is only chaos. No amount of effort will turn confusion into clarity if the foundation is not built on something strong. God does not want you to spend your life trying to make something work that was never meant to last. He does not want you to live in a state of constant questioning, of uncertainty, of pain that outweighs joy. When He removes someone from your life, it is not because He is taking something from you. It is because He is making room for something better. And that better is not just another person. It is peace. It is freedom. It is the kind of love that does not leave you anxious, but instead allows your soul to finally rest. If every attempt to make a relationship work is met with resistance, obstacles, and unfulfilled promises, it is a sign that you are knocking on a door that God has already closed. We often confuse persistence with faith, believing that if we just try a little harder, pray a little longer, or sacrifice a little more, things will finally fall into place. But what if the very resistance you are facing is not a challenge to overcome, but a message from God telling you that this is not the path He has for you? How many times have you pleaded with God to fix something that keeps falling apart? How many times have you held on, hoping that the next time things will be different, only to find yourself back in the same cycle of disappointment? Love is not meant to be a constant struggle. Yes, every relationship requires effort, but when you are the only one trying, when every step forward is met with 2 steps back, when your prayers are filled with frustration instead of faith, it may be time to accept that the door you are knocking on is not meant to open. God closes doors for a reason. He is not trying to punish you. He is not testing you to see how much pain you can endure. He is protecting you from what you cannot yet see. But the human heart is stubborn. We push and push, convinced that if we just prove ourselves worthy, if we just give it one more chance, things will finally work. And yet, the more we fight for something that is not meant for us, the more drained we become. The more we beg for something to change, the more exhausted our spirit feels. That exhaustion is a sign. That feeling of constantly walking uphill, of pushing against a wall that does not move, that is God whispering to you, telling you to stop, telling you to turn around, telling you that He has something far greater in store, if only you would stop resisting His will. But we fear the finality of a closed door. We resist endings because we see them as failures. We see a relationship not working out as proof that we were not enough, that we should have done more, that somehow. But God does not measure success the way we do. To Him, success is not about holding on to something that no longer serves you. Success is trusting Him enough to walk away when He tells you to. Success is surrendering to His greater plan, even when it does not make sense to you in the moment. Sometimes the very thing you are fighting for is the thing standing in the way of your blessing. You think you are losing something precious. But what if you are actually being set free? What if on the other side of letting go there is a peace you have never known, a love deeper than you have ever experienced, a purpose greater than you ever imagined? But you will never know as long as you keep trying to force open a door that God has already closed. At some point you have to ask yourself, is this relationship bringing me closer to God, or is it pulling me away from Him? Is this love making me better? And if every sign points to the fact that you are forcing something that was never meant to be, then the bravest thing you can do is stop. Walk away, not in defeat but in faith. Trust that what is meant for you will not require you to beg, to suffer, or to break yourself trying to make it fit. When God closes a door, He is not taking something from you. He is saving you from settling for less than what He has prepared for you. Let go and step forward into what He has waiting. Ladies and gentlemen, let's begin with a thought. What if, just for a moment, you allow yourself to see the world not through the eyes of fear and struggle, but with a deeper, more expansive perspective? The world is an illusion, a dream, a play of light and shadow. Yet within this dream there are forces that wish to manipulate, to distort, and to steal your energy. Some of these forces wear the face of a friend, a loved one, or even a colleague, and we call them demons. Now, when I say demon, I don't mean some dark, horned creature lurking in the shadows. I'm speaking of a force of energy that seeks to lead you astray, to cloud your vision of the truth, and to keep you from your true nature. It's the energy of control, fear, and manipulation, and it is far more common than you may realize. How do you know when someone in your life is channeling this kind of energy? Let me share with you 7 signs that reveal the demons walking among us. This intro sets the tone for the rest of the speech, introducing the concept of demons not as supernatural beings, but as forces of manipulation in everyday life. Imagine for a moment that the world you perceive is not quite what it seems. The familiar faces, the situations you encounter, the interactions you have, they may not always be as straightforward as you think. In this dance of life, there are forces that wish to distort your perception, cloud your understanding, and lead you down paths you may never have chosen had you seen the truth clearly. This is the first sign that someone in your life may be a demon, the distortion of reality. The distortion doesn't happen in a singular, obvious moment, but rather in a gradual shift. At first, things seem normal, even comfortable. You trust the people around you, you believe the situations you find yourself in are genuine. But then, little by little, something feels off. The truths you once knew so well begin to blur. Your instincts, your gut feeling, those intuitive senses that guided you begin to feel unreliable. You question yourself. You ask, is this really how things are, or is there something I'm missing? Did I imagine that? Was I wrong all along? This is the subtle manipulation at play. A demon in your life will twist and distort the very fabric of your perception. It will make you question your own senses, your own mind, until you begin to doubt what you once believed was clear and true. You might find yourself second-guessing your thoughts, your memories, your intentions, unsure of where your own truth ends and the confusion they've planted begins. The reality you once felt secure in now seems unstable, fragile, and you feel yourself losing a sense of control. How does this happen? It's a slow erosion, a tiny chip in the foundation of your sense of self. Perhaps they say something that feels off, a small comment that lingers in your mind. They might even suggest that your recollection of events isn't quite accurate. You're misremembering, they'll say, or that's not what happened over time. These small distortions accumulate, and you begin to wonder if you are truly seeing things the way they are. What was once a clear-cut situation now feels like a dream or a foggy memory, hard to grasp or articulate. They've shifted your perspective just enough so that you no longer trust your own judgment. But the effects of this distortion are far-reaching. It's not just about losing track of individual events or memories. This distortion seeps into the core of your identity. The more they manipulate your perception of what is real, the less confident you become in your own abilities to discern truth from illusion. You start to wonder whether your feelings are valid, whether your thoughts are truly your own, or if they've been subtly influenced by someone else. This is the power of a demon in your life, the ability to make you question your very sense of self, your understanding of the world, and your place in it. They don't need to control you through brute force or overt power. Instead, they wield the more insidious weapon of confusion, turning your own mind against you. They make you feel isolated, as if you are the only one who can't see what's going on, or that you are imagining things. As this reality distortion continues, you may find yourself becoming more anxious, more uncertain, and more disconnected from the world around you. What once felt like a safe environment is now filled with doubt and mistrust. The relationships that once provided comfort begin to feel strained, as if the ground beneath you is shifting, and you're not sure if you can trust the people in your life anymore. The worst part of this distortion is that it doesn't come with a clear warning sign. It doesn't scream, "I'm changing your reality." Instead, it creeps in, unnoticed at first, until you're so deep into the fog of confusion that it feels impossible to find your way out. It is an invisible force, a psychological illusion that makes you question your very perception of the world. Yet there is a way to break free from this. The key lies in awareness. The moment you recognize that your reality is being distorted, that someone is deliberately clouding your vision, making you question what you know to be true, you take the first step toward regaining control. And trust yourself. Trust your instincts. Recognize that your perception is not easily manipulated, and that no one has the right to dictate what you see and feel. In this recognition, the power of the demon begins to weaken. The illusion shatters, and you find clarity once again. Your truth becomes your anchor, and you are no longer swayed by the forces that seek to confuse and control you. You realize that the distortion was never real to begin with. It was a product of someone else's agenda, not your own reality. When you stand firm in your truth, you can no longer be manipulated. You begin to see the world as it truly is, unclouded by the twisted lens that was once placed before you. The demon, having no more hold on your perception, fades into the background, unable to influence the reality you have reclaimed. There are certain individuals in life who seem to have an uncanny ability to drain the very essence of your being. Their presence alone seems to pull the energy right out of you, leaving you feeling exhausted, empty, and devoid of vitality. These are the people who leave you feeling like you've just run a marathon without moving a muscle, who, despite offering nothing tangible, somehow take more than they give. It is one of the most unsettling signs that someone in your life may be a demon, the energy vampire. An energy vampire is not necessarily someone who is overtly malicious or aggressive. They don't need to scream or shout to get what they want. Instead, their power lies in their ability to subtly draw on your energy, often without you even realizing it. The energy they steal doesn't come from the physical realm, but from your emotional and mental reserves. And because this process is so gradual, so subtle, it is difficult to pinpoint exactly when it started or how it is happening. But make no mistake, if you are being drained, you are experiencing it. At first, these individuals may seem perfectly normal, even charming. They may be the type of person who presents themselves as a friend, someone who understands your struggles and offers a sympathetic ear. They seem to care genuinely about your well-being, and so you open up to them, sharing your thoughts, your hopes, your fears. What happens, though, is that with every conversation, with every moment spent in their presence, you begin to feel a little more tired, a little more worn out. The more they take, the less you have to give. This kind of draining energy doesn't necessarily come from outright confrontation or conflict. Often it is a silent, creeping drain that leaves you unable to pinpoint where the depletion comes from. They may not ask for anything directly. Perhaps they speak about their own problems incessantly, leaving you in a constant state of emotional labor, always giving, always listening, and rarely receiving anything in return. Or perhaps they manipulate your emotions by making you feel responsible for their happiness, placing the burden of their emotional well-being squarely on your shoulders. What makes the energy vampire particularly dangerous is its ability to make you feel as though it is your responsibility to take on their energy, to keep giving even when you have nothing left. It's the unspoken expectation that you will always be the one to listen, the one to help, the one to fix everything. It's the belief that your needs are secondary to theirs, and as a result you begin to neglect your own self-care, your own mental health, and your own boundaries. As you continue to give, without ever receiving a semblance of reciprocity, the effects of this depletion begin to manifest in your life. You may start to feel physically exhausted, as though you have no energy left to focus on the things that matter most. The tasks that once felt simple and manageable become overwhelming. You find yourself becoming irritable, anxious, or emotionally drained, unable to find the spark you once had. What's worse is that, in the presence of an energy vampire, you may begin to lose sight of your own identity. You may question your self-worth, as they feed off your doubts and insecurities, making you feel like you are nothing more than a vessel for their own emotional needs. The more time you spend around them, the less connected you feel to your own core. The joy, the drive, the passion that once fueled you now feels distant, like a memory fading into oblivion. And the worst part is that these vampires do not always show themselves as overtly toxic or harmful. They may disguise their draining nature under the guise of friendship or affection, making it even harder to spot their influence. So, how do you recognize when you are dealing with an energy vampire? It often comes down to how you feel after interacting with them. If you constantly feel drained, overwhelmed, or emotionally spent, and yet find little to no emotional fulfillment in return, it is a clear sign that your energy is being siphoned off. You may feel like you are always giving but never receiving. These individuals will often turn conversations back to themselves, leaving little room for you to express your own needs or desires. Their emotional state becomes the focus, and you are expected to carry that weight without question. The most important thing to remember when confronted with an energy vampire is to set boundaries. It is essential to recognize when someone is taking more than they are giving, and to protect your own emotional and mental well-being. You cannot pour from an empty cup. The more you allow these individuals to feed on your energy, the less you have to give to the people and pursuits that truly deserve your attention. By setting boundaries, by limiting the time and emotional investment you offer to these individuals, you reclaim your energy and your autonomy. At the end of the day, the key to breaking free from an energy vampire is understanding that you do not have to carry their emotional burdens. You are allowed to protect your own energy and create space for your own growth. Recognizing the signs of an energy vampire is the first step toward reclaiming your vitality. The moment you recognize that your energy is being drained, you can begin to take steps to safeguard your inner resources, allowing you to return to a state of balance and peace. You deserve to feel energized, to feel alive, and to give freely to those who truly deserve it, not to those who simply take without ever giving back. Imagine living a life where you are not the one making the decisions, but instead you are constantly being pulled in different directions by someone else's influence. You find yourself making choices that don't feel like your own, responding to situations in ways that feel disconnected from your true desires, and ultimately realizing that someone else is shaping your destiny. This is what it feels like when you are under the control of a manipulative force, a force that subtly takes away your power and autonomy. This is the third sign that someone in your life may be a demon manipulation and control. The demon that manifests in the form of manipulation doesn't wear a mask that's easily recognized. It doesn't announce itself with an obvious, overt display of force. No, manipulation is much more insidious. It's subtle. It's sneaky. It works in the shadows, shaping your thoughts, actions, and beliefs without you even being aware of it at first. The manipulator plays on your emotions, your vulnerabilities, your sense of guilt, and your desire to please. They twist the reality of situations, making you feel as if you are the one responsible for things that are not your fault, or that you are the one who should make sacrifices, even when those sacrifices come at your own expense. One of the most common tactics used by manipulative individuals is to make you question your own thoughts and decisions. They have a way of making you feel uncertain, making you doubt whether you're thinking clearly or whether your judgment is clouded. Over time, you begin to lose confidence in your ability to make decisions. You find yourself deferring to them, because you start to believe that they know better than you do. They might say things like, "You're overreacting," or "You're being too sensitive," undermining your emotional responses and making you feel like you're the one who is wrong. This constant questioning of your thoughts, feelings, and actions is a form of gaslighting, a manipulation tactic designed to destabilize your sense of reality. And when your sense of reality is in flux, it becomes easier for them to control you. They position themselves as the voice of reason, the one who has your best interests at heart, and slowly but surely you begin to surrender your autonomy. You no longer trust your instincts, you no longer trust yourself. And in this state of confusion, the manipulator is free to dictate how things will go. But manipulation doesn't always happen with words alone. Sometimes it's done through actions, behaviors, and even subtle gestures that create a sense of dependency. The manipulator might create situations where you feel emotionally obligated to them. They might help you with something, but in return expect something in return, whether it's emotional support, obedience, or blind loyalty. They use your vulnerabilities against you, exploiting your fears, your insecurities, and your need for validation. What makes manipulation particularly harmful is that it often goes unnoticed for a long time. It's not as though you wake up one day and realize you've been controlled. Instead, it's a slow, creeping shift in the balance of power. They don't just come out and demand things from you. They gently nudge you toward making decisions that benefit them, not you. They might frame things in a way that makes you feel as if you're the one benefiting, when in fact you're giving away your energy, your time, and your peace of mind. Over time, the weight of this manipulation becomes unbearable. You begin to feel like you're living in someone else's world, following a script that was written for you. Your desires, your needs, your sense of self become secondary to the desires of the manipulator. You might even lose sight of what you truly want, as your actions are constantly shaped by their influence. Your autonomy is gradually eroded, and you become more and more like a puppet in their hands. But perhaps the most insidious aspect of manipulation is the emotional toll it takes on you. It's not just about the decisions you make, it's about how you feel about yourself in the process. The manipulator may make you feel as though you are incapable of handling things on your own, creating a sense of emotional dependence. This emotional dependence breeds insecurity as you come to rely on their approval and validation for your sense of worth. The manipulator thrives on this dependency because it gives them the power to control your emotions and actions. The longer you allow manipulation to persist, the more you begin to lose yourself. You become disconnected from your own desires, your own goals, and your own identity. The manipulator thrives in this space because they know that as long as you are confused, unsure, and emotionally dependent, they hold all the cards. Recognizing manipulation is the first step toward breaking free. It requires you to reclaim your sense of self, to trust your instincts, and to set boundaries that protect your autonomy. It means refusing to be gaslighted, refusing to be swayed by someone else's agenda, and learning to make decisions based on your own values and desires. Reclaiming your power means no longer allowing others to dictate the course of your life. When you take control of your own life, the manipulator loses their grip. Their influence begins to fade as you regain clarity and confidence in your own decisions. It's not easy, but the path to freedom begins with awareness. The moment you recognize manipulation for what it is, you can begin to break free from its hold and rediscover the power you have within yourself. There are individuals in life whose mere presence can stir up negativity, chaos, and confusion. They seem to thrive on conflict, feed off tension, and turn every interaction into an opportunity for discord. This is another sign that someone in your life may be a demon, their ability to create and sustain destructive patterns that pull you into negative cycles. These are the people who, whether consciously or unconsciously, perpetuate turmoil and confusion wherever they go. They are addicted to negativity, and they often drag others along with them into the same destructive patterns. The way they operate is often subtle, yet undeniably pervasive. They don't necessarily need to be overtly hostile or aggressive, though that can certainly be part of their nature. More often than not, they introduce negativity into your life in a more covert manner through subtle remarks, passive-aggressive behavior, or emotionally charged situations that seem to escalate out of nowhere. These individuals seem to have an uncanny ability to bring out the worst in people, to stir up emotions that would otherwise remain dormant, and to turn minor issues into major crises. Over time, you may notice that interacting with them leaves you feeling drained, upset, or emotionally exhausted. What once felt like a neutral situation can quickly devolve into an argument, a conflict, or an emotionally charged experience. They might play the victim card, drawing you into their drama and making you feel responsible for fixing things that are not yours to fix. You may find yourself constantly walking on eggshells, unsure of when the next conflict will arise or what might set them off. This creates a constant state of tension, where you are always anticipating the next emotional storm. What is most troubling about these destructive patterns is that they tend to escalate over time. Initially, you may brush off their behavior as just a bad day or a momentary lapse in judgment. However, as these patterns repeat, they become more entrenched and harder to ignore. The small disagreements turn into full-blown arguments, the offhand comments become cutting insults, and the emotional manipulation becomes more obvious. You find yourself constantly caught up in cycles of conflict, unable to break free from the constant negativity that surrounds them. These individuals often thrive on this emotional chaos. They create drama where there was none before, and they seem to feed off the discord they generate. It's as if they are addicted to the emotional highs and lows, to the sense of power they derive from creating conflict and then resolving it in their own way. It gives them a sense of control, a sense of superiority, and an ability to manipulate the emotions of others to suit their needs. At first, you may try to reason with them to find a way to resolve the conflicts that arise. You may believe that with enough effort, enough patience, or enough understanding, you can break through the negativity and bring things back to a calm and peaceful state. But over time, you realize that no matter what you do, the same destructive patterns continue to repeat themselves. Each attempt to solve the problem only leads to more frustration and confusion. It becomes apparent that the issue isn't just about the specific conflict at hand, but about the way they operate in the world. They are not interested in resolution or harmony. Instead, they are driven by a need for chaos, a need to create conflict that serves their own emotional or psychological needs. This destructive behavior also manifests in the way they treat others. They often pit people against each other, stirring up gossip, creating divisions and fostering mistrust. They thrive on competition, jealousy, and rivalry, and they may even encourage others to feel animosity toward one another. Their words may be laced with negativity, criticism, or judgment, and they often seek to undermine the efforts or success of others. These actions not only create discord, but also make it difficult for you to feel safe or supported in your relationships, because their presence introduces an undercurrent of distrust and division wherever they go. As the destructive patterns continue, you may begin to feel like you are constantly swimming in a sea of negativity. You may start to question your own perceptions, your own reactions, and your role in the conflicts that arise. You may begin to internalize the negative energy, carrying it with you long after the conflict has passed. This is part of the power that these individuals have over you. They drag you into their emotional turmoil and make it difficult for you to separate yourself from the chaos they create. The key to breaking free from this destructive influence is recognizing the patterns and understanding that you do not have to participate in them. You don't have to be drawn into the drama or become a pawn in their emotional game. Once you identify that their behavior is rooted in a need for chaos, you can begin to set boundaries, refuse to engage in the negative dynamics they seek to create, and protect your own peace of mind. You must understand that their destructive behavior is not a reflection of you or your worth. It is a reflection of their own inner turmoil and need for control. In the end, the most powerful thing you can do when faced with someone who thrives on negativity is to refuse to play their game. Walk away from the conflict, detach yourself from the emotional drama, and protect your energy. By choosing not to participate in the destructive cycles they create, you reclaim your power and protect your emotional well-being. You are not responsible for their chaos, and you don't have to carry the burden of their negativity. By recognizing their behavior for what it is and making the conscious choice to disengage, you can free yourself from their toxic influence and return to a place of peace and balance. There are people in life who, despite their outward charm, kindness, or affection, seem to only offer superficial connections. They do not invest in genuine, meaningful relationships, but rather keep everything at a surface level. The deeper emotional bond, the kind that truly nurtures the spirit, is lacking. This is the fifth sign that someone in your life may be a demon: emotional detachment or a lack of true connection. They create the illusion of intimacy, but underneath, they remain emotionally distant, leaving you feeling hollow and unfulfilled. It starts innocently enough. They may show interest in your life, ask questions, and seem genuinely concerned about your well-being. They might even share some personal details of their own, giving you the impression that they are open and vulnerable. But as time goes on, you start to notice the cracks in their emotional landscape. Despite the surface-level interactions, there is a wall between you that you can't quite cross. There is no real emotional depth. Their responses feel rehearsed, their engagement feels superficial, and their affection seems conditional. This emotional detachment can be unsettling, especially when you begin to realize that no matter how much you give, no matter how much you invest emotionally, you never feel like you are truly being seen or understood. They never truly open up to you. They keep their thoughts, their fears, and their desires locked away behind an invisible barrier, and in doing so, they create a one-sided connection. You give them your energy, your time, your love, but they withhold theirs. It is a constant imbalance in the relationship, where your needs are unmet, and your emotions are left hanging in the air, unacknowledged. What makes this emotional detachment even more painful is the sense of isolation it creates. You begin to feel like you are in a relationship, whether it's a friendship, a romantic connection, or a familial bond, but at the same time you feel completely alone. You might sit next to them, share moments of supposed closeness, yet still feel a profound sense of emptiness. They may say the right things at the right times, but there's no depth behind their words. They are not emotionally available in a meaningful way. You are left feeling like an outsider in your own life, as though you are simply going through the motions of a relationship without ever truly being seen. This detachment can be incredibly confusing because the individual may not appear to be doing anything overtly wrong. They are not necessarily cold or distant in a way that's immediately obvious. Instead, it's the absence of warmth, the lack of emotional reciprocity, that makes the relationship feel hollow. You may find yourself constantly trying to fill in the gaps, to bridge the emotional gap that they refuse to cross. You pour yourself into the relationship, seeking to connect, to bond, and to understand, only to find that they remain untouchable, emotionally unavailable. Their detachment might also manifest in their inability to empathize with your emotions. When you share your joys, your struggles, or your vulnerabilities, they offer no real response. They may not validate your feelings, nor will they offer comfort or understanding. In many cases, their reaction might be an awkward silence or a quick change of subject, as though your emotions are something they simply cannot or will not deal with. They seem to have little capacity for emotional depth when it comes to others. When the focus is on their feelings or needs, they may open up just enough to maintain the appearance of emotional connection, but when it's your turn to share, they shut down, withdraw, or deflect. This emotional detachment often creates a toxic dynamic in relationships, where one person is constantly giving and the other is constantly taking. The person who is emotionally detached does not invest in the connection, but instead remains in a position where they can keep receiving, whether that's love, attention, or emotional labor, without offering anything meaningful in return. Over time, this can lead to feelings of resentment, frustration, and confusion, as the one giving feels increasingly drained and unfulfilled, while the other remains emotionally untouched and indifferent. The most troubling part of this detachment is that it often leaves you questioning yourself. You may begin to wonder if you are somehow to blame for their emotional withdrawal. You might even convince yourself that if you only gave more, tried harder, or were more patient, you could break through the wall they've built around themselves. But the truth is, no matter how much you give, no matter how much you try, you cannot force someone to open up if they are not willing to do so. Emotional connection cannot be forced. It has to be mutual, and it has to come from a place of vulnerability, trust, and reciprocity. Recognizing emotional detachment for what it is can be a painful but necessary step in reclaiming your emotional health. It's important to realize that you cannot keep investing in someone who is emotionally unavailable. The longer you stay in these one-sided relationships, the more drained you will become. You will continue to pour your heart out, but your emotional well-being will be left in tatters. The first step in breaking free from the cycle of emotional detachment is to accept that you are worthy of genuine, meaningful connections. You deserve relationships where your feelings are valued, where there is emotional reciprocity, and where your heart is seen and respected. Let go of the belief that you can fix or change someone who is unwilling to engage emotionally. Instead, focus on nurturing the relationships that feed your soul, where both parties are invested in creating a true emotional bond. In the end, emotional detachment is not just about the other person, it's about your own self-worth and the choices you make about who you allow into your life. You are not here to be someone's emotional filler. You deserve relationships that are built on mutual respect, understanding, and emotional availability. The moment you recognize emotional detachment for what it is and begin to protect your heart from one-sided connections, you make space for true intimacy to flourish. The demons who create emotional distance will no longer have a hold on you, and you will find deeper, more meaningful relationships that reflect the love and connection you deserve.